What if I told you that I actually tried to record this 2 times on 2 separate days, and then I realized that both times the audio on my recording was messed up, which meant I couldn't use the footage at all. Just the first time I did it, I was like, oh, I guess I didn't set like my microphone like as the default, so there's just no audio. And then the second time I did, but then the audio started clipping throughout the entire thing. Like, it just wasn't discernible. Like, I have no clue why that happened. I almost gave up on filming this, and I was kind of like, if this happens again with this recording, I'm just not going to make the video. Like, it's just as simple as that. And I'll just have to figure out what's going on. However, I do think that this was good, if only because more information has come out that has informed me on some of the troubles. So I think now that I've kind of gotten my thoughts a bit more clear, a bit more concise, and I have some information, not a lot, but like just something, I guess, to explain certain things, I think I can actually make this video and like talk about what I think. I like Arcane. I really like Arcane. I like the first season. I haven't seen it since when it came out, which was 2021, so it's been like 3 years at this point. I don't remember too much from season 1. I remember enough to like watch season 2 and make it make sense, but like you couldn't, like, specific things I couldn't remember too well. I want to start this by saying I like season 2. Like, I can't unenjoy the show. Like, I enjoyed watching it, but like there's just a lot of stuff that was just kind of weird, in my opinion. You know what, let's just start with where my feelings kind of manifested from this, because ultimately I was enjoying the show up until literally like right at the end, like the last like 10 minutes of the show, and I'm gonna explain why that is. First of all, Echo saved the day. Echo, congratulations. We literally couldn't have done it without you. Jason, Victor are gay and they sacrifice themselves and blow up. Everyone gets released, but it causes everyone to fall, including Vi and Jinx. They both fall on separate platforms. Vi and Vander fall on this pillar that's basically about to come off. These characters take a lot of hits. Like, you can see how much that shit hurts them. It's crazy. Vi is like kind of struggling, and you can see the platform is like caving under both her and Vander's weight, and she's just like, hey, if you just like run, like if you just start going now, you can like make it, you can get off the platform. And Vi doesn't do that. She just kind of, she looks at Vander all emotional, and I get what they were trying to do, but I feel like this is kind of the domino effect of the following story decisions, which kind of makes it really dumb. Because we already did the whole song and dance about like the emotional weight of Vander, and you know, them trying to bring him back, and it didn't really work, and each, like, we already did that. So for them to kind of emphasize this again just felt really weird. I'm not saying Vi still can't be upset about it. I'm saying that it felt like the writers needed an excuse for her to not listen to Jinx, so then it would cause the next chain of events, which is the platform starts to break off even more, causing everyone to fall, and like now they're all grabbing onto each other. And then Jinx has to unlock Vi's gauntlets, and which would allow her to fall and sacrifice herself and Vander to save Vi. I don't know why they decided to do this. I was immediately like me and my friend watched it, and we just stayed silent for the rest of the whatever the show was going to do, because I think, at least for me, I was just like, let's just see what's going on here, because like that just seemed like a really, it felt like they needed one last thing to kind of get you, like to shock you, to be like, oh, like just one more thing to throw in there because these characters haven't been through enough. And then the rest of the little conclusion, which by the way, it just feels very rushed. It doesn't really feel like a conclusion to the story. You have Caitlyn's like voicing over it, talking about like this and war and all the, you know, whatever. I don't remember what she said. We kind of see where characters are going. Echo's all alone. Crazy, by the way. Imagine you go to an alternate dimension where you see an alternate version of the girl you like a world where she is like normal and good and stuff, but like she's not your version, and it kind of makes you open your eyes about like your relationship with the actual version of that girl you like. And then You literally invent a time machine with your little Blorbo guy, who then sacrifices himself to help you to go back to your actual dimension. You go back, you talk your girlfriend out of suicide, by the way. You successfully do that. You get her help so that she can help fight the fucking whatever. Only for her to just end up killing herself anyways. And so now you're just alone. And it almost kind of makes you think, like, what was even the point? Like, obviously the point was to save the world and save the town and save the people. It's just that it's like, that just feels like a really cruel, like unnecessarily cruel end for Echo. You know, I'm not even arguing in the sense that he needed to be rewarded with a relationship with Jinx for his good deeds. It's not even really about that. I think it's just more so a sense of like, actually, I'll explain it later. I'll get to that later. Then you have Vi and Kate looking all sad. Well, Vi looks fucking sad because her sister is dead, and she's just kind of like, it's just, I know people wanted them to get together, but like, it does not feel like right or conclusive here. It just doesn't. It just feels weird. It feels really strange. It's so strange. It's treated like it's a good thing, and I don't really think it is, and I'll explain why. No, the thing about it is that, like, I feel like the decision to kill off Jinx just completely erased any sort of, like, needed development for these characters and for the story to conclude in a satisfying way. Killing her off just, it like halted 3 characters, like, character progression, which is insane. Because you have Caitlyn, who I actually liked Caitlyn, like, as a character, because I thought she was interesting, and it was interesting to see this character who, like, benefited off of this system of Piltover, and you started to slowly see her get, like, kind of indoctrinated into being a fascist, but also willingly choosing to do these things because she believes that defeating Jinx will result in a net positive for society, even though ultimately what she was doing was just turning Jinx into a symbol, similar to how the Zonites turned Jinx into a symbol as a symbol of, like, revolution. Instead, Caitlyn turned Jinx into a scapegoat that also represented everything she perceived to be wrong with Zon, and she perceived to be a threat to Piltover. Because not to be fair, but just to be played devil's advocate, Jinx is a terrorist. But it is interesting because mainly the only reason why she's doing this is because Jinx killed her mom in the explosion. Now she has to sort of, like, take up the mantle that her mom left behind for her, but slowly kind of gets corrupted by this need to, like, get Jinx back, like, get back at her. So the thing is that there are so many issues systematically with Piltover and Zon that, like, Jinx, sure, you could argue she's part of the problem, but she isn't the problem itself. She almost makes an example out of Jinx as this, like, we need to get her specifically. This is what's wrong with her society. When in reality, like, Jinx is kind of just a piece of the puzzle. But, like, that's not gonna solve the poverty. It's not gonna solve the classism and the caste systems. It's not gonna actually solve any sort of issue, like, inherently wrong with the society. Killing Jinx is not for any sort of greater good. It's just to settle a score. And because she's so driven to do it, with her unwillingness to humanize Jinx, I'm not saying she has to trust her, just to humanize her as a person. It, like, drives her to do these crazy fucking things. She's gassing Zon, which is like a poisonous gas that's literally, like, I'm gonna say it's killing people, because there's no way that like being exposed to that for so long is gonna be, like, you know, that's gonna lead to death in some way, even not immediately, or at the very least permanently disabling these people. Like, that's fucking crazy. I don't know why I forgot the name of it, but it's called The Gray. Willingly decides to do that. Also was almost willingly going to shoot a child in order to shoot Jinx, and Vi was and Vi rightfully was upset, like, that's a kid. She doesn't even know who Isha is or the relationship that Isha has to Jinx, but even she's like, yo, you were about, like, what if you shot that kid? And Caitlyn's like, I wouldn't have missed. It's not about missing or not, girl. The kid has nothing to do with this. This is not it. Like, this is not it. And, like, that conflict was there, and, like, that was interesting to me. And I feel like the show could have gone, like, 2 ways with this. One, Caitlyn learning the error of her ways and then like having to actually face the consequences of almost becoming a fascist, which would lead to a scene or to something where she would have to, her and Jinx have to set aside their differences and reconcile. Not set aside their differences, because like that's dismissive of the point. Just more so that she'd have to learn that killing Jinx will not bring her mom back, but also killing Jinx will not actually do it, especially since Jinx is Vi's sister. Like, no matter what, that is her sister. I'm not saying Jinx is innocent per se, it's just that it's like, she just wasn't being understanding of why Vi was like, to be so honest with you, that is not her fight. That's not her tea, that's not her drama. Anything revolving around Vi and Jinx is not her fucking business, point blank. So like, I don't know, I thought it was gonna lead to something like that. That's kind of what they were doing. Or what I was thinking was that she was just gonna go full fascist and become like the second antagonist of the show, which would lead to Vi and Jinx having to fight them together because now they have a unified enemy. Oh, the misery. Either we have redemption or we have full on like she just goes off the deep end. Either one could have been fine for me. I was just expecting them to kind of like take her character in some sort of interesting direction, something that would have said something about her, but also either giving her the chance to like actually reflect on herself as a person and like deciding on what's actually going to be good to do like as a leader, because at this point that's kind of what she is. Or it was going to be more of like a cautionary tale of seeing how easy it is for somebody to fall into this like the cycle, like this abusive, violent cycle. The issue with this though is that killing off Jinx completely cuts this off for Caitlyn. It completely cuts off any sort of interesting character development that she could have had, because that's literally like tied to it. She's tied to it directly. Like it just does. There's a scene in the jail cell where they're talking and Jinx is like, hey man, I didn't know your mom was there. Okay, not that I care that she was there, but I didn't know. So I just would have thought that was going to lead to another scene later on, or just something later on that would fully expand on this like dichotomy or whatever. And then they don't. But it's because she died. Like, that's literally it. Like I said, it cuts off any sort of interesting development that Caitlyn could have had, but it also just makes Caitlyn, like, the other main issue is that because the ending is so rushed and nothing is really, like, solved or solidified, Caitlyn is still in power, or has a position of power. She hasn't faced any repercussions for any of the terrible things that she has done. Not even really from Vi. Vi got really upset with her at the beginning of the season, but then later on, it just kind of didn't matter that she did these things because she still ends up with her. I don't know, man. I truly don't hate Kate Vi. I thought it was an interesting relationship. I just think it's really dumb and stupid that a lot of people are just focusing on the fact that Kate Vi is canon and that's the endgame couple, but like we're not actually looking at how these characters were written for each other, because what I thought was a very interesting like relationship between these two were clearly like, first of all, like it's queer, it's lesbian, it's awesome and great, but there's more to it than just being cute girls together. Vi is a girl from Zaun and Kate is an enforcer from Piltover. That conflict actually affecting their relationship in like a meaningful way that would test them both, and then it just kind of doesn't really happen. But we're just supposed to be like happy that they're just together at the end. And I think it mainly just fucking sucks for Vi, because Vi, I feel like, gets kind of hoed this season. Maybe this is a weird opinion to have. I feel like Vi just kind of gets reduced to being Caitlyn's girlfriend a little bit, just a little bit. Just a little bit. I wouldn't say for the whole show it was that way, like arguably not really. I think just the fact though that Vi ends up with Kate anyways, despite like I said, Caitlyn didn't really have like that much of notable character development. There's like implications that she probably isn't as bad as she like she has the ability to become better, but like that's the thing, we don't see that happen. So like now they're just still together despite all the things that Caitlyn did to her sister and did to Zaun, and like It just feels really weird. I don't know.
I want to emphasize that I don't hate the foundation that Kate Vi started with. I'll talk about it later, but I feel like because of the abandonment of the themes of the show, it just makes the relationship feel even more shallow and just not that enjoyable for me by the end of it. Also want to mention here how the writer basically admitted that they just didn't really give a fuck about Vi. Maybe I'm being mean with my assertion here. Maybe it's not that they didn't care, it's just that they genuinely had a lot on their plate, and they did have a lot on their plate. But I just think it's crazy that Vi, who's a very central character to Arcane, just got so sidelined and ultimately didn't get treated very well during the show. Not just with how she was treated by Caitlyn and just by the writers. I mean, even the stuff with the enforcers never really gets brought back up. He tried to, Kristen Link tried to say that this was a point of conflict for her, but she never faces any consequences for this, and it never gets brought back up. So it really doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. It feels shallow.
I was gonna say it earlier. Why did Echo? Why is it that Echo went above and beyond, but he just ends up alone. But Caitlyn does all these terrible things and doesn't apologize, doesn't face consequences, not even from her partner. And they're just still together and she gets the happy ending. I'm not saying this to say that it needs to be a black and white thing where good character gets rewarded and bad character gets punished. Them being together would have actually been fine had their characters went through more development. The show ending, Jinx dying and the show getting cut so short, just makes it feel really unsatisfying and kind of fucking cruel. Like I said, it just feels cruel to any character, especially if they were affected by Piltover and the Enforcers. Piltover's the same. Zon still exists. Whatever infighting stuff that was happening earlier in the show, that doesn't get really resolved either. When I say the infighting, I mean the infighting in Zon. And I think the main reason is because Jinx dies. Because she is gone, and she's also intrinsically tied to 3 other characters in terms of their stories and motivation. That just kind of ruins their character development for me. I don't know. It was such a weird decision. Someone's gonna bring up, oh well, Jinx isn't actually dead because in the end scene, Caitlyn is looking through the maps of the it's the pit where she fell into the core or whatever. But there's these air vents, and she smiles to herself, which would imply that she thinks that Jinx is still alive because she could have escaped the vents. It ends with a visual of a balloon, an air balloon ship, and it glitches, which would mean that Jinx is actually alive and she faked her own death, but she just fucked off somewhere else. I'm not buying it. Not that I don't believe that Jinx could still be alive, but even if that's the case, that still doesn't make the ending any better. In fact, that makes it even weirder. Why the fuck did Jinx just leave? Now, I know people were saying because she had to learn to walk away for herself and walk away from, this abusive cycle, and, she believed that Vi and Caitlyn would be happy together. Are we really under the impression that with the show that we got, Vi deserved to be with Kate after every single thing that happened? Even if Jinx said that, that was when she was at a really low point in the story emotionally. I'm talking suicidal, feeling like she doesn't need to exist anymore, feeling like she is her existence is a hindrance, and that the only thing she can do is just not exist anymore. Are we really just gonna take that statement at face value and just assume that she was actually being right? I mean, I guess the writers did, because that's what happened at the end. I have to emphasize how this doesn't feel like a satisfying ending regardless, even if Jinx is alive. Caitlyn either knows or assumes so, but does Vi know? Does Echo know? Why does Caitlyn get the satisfaction of knowing she's still alive, but reaping the benefits of the fact that most of the public assume that Jinx is dead? But she gets to know? For what? She tried to kill her the entire season. That's not anything. Like, what? And then Vi and Echo don't know. Hey, I just realized, how come Vi and Echo did not interact at all this season? That's insane to me. That's crazy. They're friends. What's going on? Why did Savika just get like sidelined in Act 3? She does nothing in Act 3. It's so weird. She was like hyped up to be this important character with Jinx for like the first half of the season, which I actually liked, because I didn't really give a fuck about Savika in season 1, but I actually really liked her here. And then she just doesn't do anything in Act 3, but we're supposed to be like, yay, she gets to be a spokesperson in the council, even though like they are still prejudiced against Zahn. So it's not like her being there actually like solves anything, and we don't even know if this is gonna like help their case. I don't know. I'm all for open endings. I just feel like this ending, like, it doesn't feel like the conclusion to the story. This was my big fear with the ending, was that there's a lot of things that Arcane set up, because it's a narrative with so many weaving parts, and there's just so many things that I feel like the story just doesn't acknowledge or like cap off at the end, and it's really weird. There's a scene in season 1 where she's talking about how like the city is gonna respect Zahn one day.
This city's gonna respect us.
Did that ever happen? It didn't. It didn't happen. How come Savika never got to see Vander even in his fucked up form? That's not really a big criticism. I'm just saying that, like, looking back, that seems like a very like weird like thing that they didn't think of. I don't know. Oh yeah, Echo never got to interact with Kate either. And someone pointed that out, because like if he ever like, if he's, dude, he would have ate her up so bad. It's actually crazy. Like Echo's little home with the tree, we don't see what that looks like near the end of the show either. I just think that's weird that we don't get to see him like go back to his community and like talk to the, like, he's just sitting by himself alone because the show is dumb. It's so funny because like this ending being like really bad kind of like, at least for me, made me think about the season as a whole, and realizing how many like little cracks and problems it had. Because the thing about it is that even with some of the problems, I feel like the ending being better would have, like, I wouldn't feel as harshly about it, but the ending fumbled so bad that it made me rethink the show. And it kind of made me realize, like, man, this season was messy. I haven't, like, watched season 1 in a long time. But the thing I liked about Arcane was that it had so many moving parts to it, but it felt very natural and seamless how it went back and forth between them. It was cool to see them kind of converge with each other, like, and how characters from different statuses and things would come together. Or not come together, but just you could see... You saw how the storylines would kind of intertwine, and they kind of do it here, but it just doesn't feel as like cleanly executed, especially in the latter half. And it's definitely having to do with what they decided to get focused to, like the whole like Victor J subplot, which, by the way, I like the Victor J subplot, but we have to acknowledge that took up so much fucking screen time, and it kind of let a lot of other things kind of get like pushed to the very, very end, like Echo and Mel, which I get, but it kind of makes these other subplots feel less developed in comparison. Echo's, I think, is fine, just the only thing is that, you know, Echo gets hoed at the end, so whatever. Mel just felt completely like sidelined for a good chunk of the show, and I don't think it helps that her subplot just really doesn't have anything to do with anybody else, which I don't know if that would make hers better or worse with how messy it is anyways, but like her little subplot, especially just with her mother, is like very divorced of the entire like every other plot point, at least to me. Maybe I missed something, but like it doesn't really have anything to do with the only real connecting thread being that they hauled Victor in because they were using him. It didn't really have much to do with like the arcane or the hex tech stuff really, and they definitely had nothing to do with Jinx and whatever. The only connecting thread is that Caitlyn was there and she was working with Ambessa. And like, I like Mel and I like how her story ended, so it's not really her, it's just that she didn't really get as much. Also, like, isn't it crazy how like her and Jace were together the whole show and they actually had a pretty like normal relationship, but Jace willingly sacrificed himself along with Victor to save the world, leaving Mel alone. The moral of Arcane season 2 is to always kill yourself. That is the moral of the story. No matter what happens, you have that option and you can just do it, and it's fine. Like, just do it. It's okay. All I'm saying is that Jace and Victor like failed to stop that bullshit from going on, and they needed Echo to build a time machine with broken pieces of gum and nails to save them by the end. So there has been some information we learned recently about cut content, which doesn't surprise me. Like this season reeks of like we cut content, to be honest. It didn't seem like it while I watched it, but like after the fact I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. There's been like videos and streams, but there's a thing where one of the, I guess, writers or crew members talked about a cut scene with Echo and Jinx.
When he tries to convince Jinx that there is a version of Powder, of her, that is so different, that is a whole, more complete person, and he has seen it, it's not some theory or him trying to convince her. I think she can feel that when he tells her that version exists. And so I think that it's really beautiful and was also what Echo needed. Powder is such an amazing example of what Zahn can be. And I think that's worth continuing with their story forward.
Am I the only one who feels kind of weird about this? Because it's like, I just think it's weird to refer to the alternate version of Jinx, I guess Powder, as like this whole complete version of her, because she really wasn't. First and foremost, Jinx and Powder, and when I say Powder, I'm talking about the alternate Jinx from like the good universe. I don't see her as like a better Jinx or a more whole Jinx. If anything, she also kind of has a bit of brokenness to her, because she doesn't have the drive to create and to invent like normal Jinx does, because in that dimension, Vi died due to an explosion, and because of that, it led to Powder not wanting to use the like hex text shit. Thus, she doesn't like have this drive to like create and stuff. So like, yeah, she's a normal, nice person. She's not like insane, but she also has a lot of things missing in her life that would bring her to her full potential, which Echo actually does help her with. Like, by the end of the episode, we see that she now has the drive to do this, and she's now ready to let the trauma go and like create stuff. Normal Jinx has the drive and she has all the things. It's just that all that bullshit happened. I understand what they mean. I think it's just weird to phrase it in a way to make it seem like the point was that Echo wanted her to be just like Powder, who's this whole and complete and nice Jinx, when she wasn't whole and complete. Like, she just wasn't. And I think kind of feels like it just feels weird to like have that sort of thing. It almost feels like almost like hearing that person say that makes me wonder what was the point of that scene, because what I thought it was that, yes, this did give him a perspective of like what Jinx could have been, but I don't think it's in the way of like he wants her to be exactly like that. If anything, he was weirded out by this version of her because she was so nice and like normal. I think it was just more so it gave him the perspective of that people have the ability to change and become better, but it was more so like understanding Jinx and what happened to her, rather than like almost being like, you need to be like this better version of you. Like, that's just so weird to me. Also, I think in the interview they said that in this cut thing he would have told her about the alternate Jinx. I don't think he should have. I personally don't think that should have been a thing. I mean, obviously it wasn't because they cut it, so it didn't happen. But I just don't think I don't think that that's like, it's just one of the things. It's like, it's not bad writing, it's just not necessary. I don't think it's necessary to really do that, to be like, hey, by the way, I went to this alternate dimension, and like, I don't think they needed to do that in order for that to be impactful, right? If anything, that would be worse. I feel like that would be so bad to go to someone and be like, hey, by the way, I was in an alternate dimension where you were like healthy and normal and cool and cute and like awesome and stuff, and like like, what the hell? What are we doing? But I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter what he told her or how he told her, or what he did, because ultimately, even though, like, no matter what he would have wanted, no matter what sort of reality he would have wanted with her, no matter the possibility of her being able to change and improve herself and stop being like, stop hurting herself and stop hurting others. No matter what, it didn't really matter because she killed herself, slashed, faked her death, and just ran off somewhere and didn't even allow herself the chance to do that in a place where she would be like with her family and friends. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, I guess. No matter what, even if you have the chance to be better, you can always just cut it short. You don't have to. That's such a weird like thing to leave off on, right? Because like that's why I also think it's weird that people are trying to frame this as a good thing for Jinx when it really isn't. I don't think that this is good for her in terms of like healing and being better. The season did all this stuff to have Vi and Jinx come back together and they fight with each other, but they're also like working with each other, and the possibility of them being able to be normal family is like there, and then she goes away, and then that just doesn't get paid off, and it's just weird. I don't know, but hey, Vi gets to be with Caitlyn, her fascist GF or whatever, so who cares? I just think something that's kind of pissing me off a little bit is seeing like, I don't want to call people media illiterate, because ultimately it's like people having different interpretations and views on things is not them being illiterate. We all are different people. I just think it's weird that there are people who are kind of like trying to gloss over the very fatal flaws of this season, or trying to excuse them as like intentional writing decisions, which like sure they are intentional. It's just that it's like, I think because people are trying to excuse these issues, they are further misrepresenting what this show is supposed to be, or at the very least what it set itself up to be. Because like, I don't know, man, I think it's just crazy that there's all this focus on Zaun, and this focus on like both sides, and this like conflict between Zaun and Piltover, and it just doesn't get like concluded in a satisfying way. Like that's one of the main issues I have, is that like this show talks a big talk about like these characters wanting a better future for Zaun and liberating Zaun and doing all these things, and then it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. But Piltover and the Enforcers and Caitlyn and all these people don't really face any severe consequences for their actions and the enforcement of the systematic. It's one of those things where you kind of just sit there and you're like, did the creators like want to do this, but they didn't feel like they could fully go in with this very like, I guess just very like hardcore message. They wanted the flair and the fun and the aesthetics of it, but couldn't fully settle on it. Or maybe they just didn't have much to say in the end at all. Maybe that's it. I mean, I can't say they had nothing to say. It's just that like whatever they wanted to say, I feel like the message gets very muddled by the end, because they just weren't able to like follow up on all of those themes and conclude the story in any satisfying way. So now you're just kind of left to look at everything and be like, what was even the point? I saw a tweet about how this show has a tendency to kill off like cool background characters just to do it. Like they show a character enough on screen for you to remember and care, but then when their purpose is done, they just get killed off. I guess either for just like, I don't know, is it supposed to elicit an emotional reaction? Is it just for shock? Is it just to like, I don't know. And then someone was like, well, death doesn't really have a reason, and it's war is pointless and death is pointless. And like, oh my god, guys, what the fuck are we doing? Are we really here saying that death and war is pointless? What are we saying? I think I know what people are trying to say, but I think these people are misinterpreting what that even means, or like what that's supposed to mean. If we're viewing this through the lens of death being pointless, then like any of the deaths in this show are just pointless. The people who died are pointless. I guess what they're trying to say is that like the death shouldn't have happened. Like this continuing the cycle of killing and death is meaningless. But like even that, I feel like is a very reductive mindset on it, and is not that informed. Death means something. Death absolutely means something. War absolutely means something. I'm not saying I like war, that I want war to continue, but like war happens for a reason, especially in this. Like there is a reason for the fighting and the cycle to continue, because the problems aren't solved yet. Like, poverty still exists, Zon still exists, there's the weird shit with the Noxians. Like, there is a reason for all this to be happening, so I feel like having this reductive mindset that, oh, but the point is that war is pointless. Then what was the point of the fucking show? Just to see people, what are we even saying right now? Again, it just feels like people are trying to rationalize deliberate story decisions as like this bigger thing, when like it's just not. Like, some of this just isn't good writing or like satisfying writing. Like, not saying it's inherently bad writing, just that like it didn't really like, it didn't do what they wanted it to do, at least for me. The writers decide who lives and dies. There's a reason why Maddie died, but Caitlyn didn't, you know? Like, we all clapped and cheered when she got capped in the head, but also we know that, like, Caitlyn is just as bad and culpable as Maddie. It's just that Maddie got killed because she is a backstabber. That's literally it. It's, like, that is there to be a satisfying thing for the viewer to, like, reward them for not liking Maddie. But, like, Caitlyn doesn't suffer from that. Caitlyn doesn't suffer any sort of, like... She gets her eye cut, but, like, that's it. She's alive. She's fine. Like, war is bad, but I feel like people are misinterpreting war bad messages, and now they're just saying bullshit to, like, write off, like, the really big oversights of this narrative. It's so strange. When the show talks about breaking the cycle, it's not just talking about war. I mean, if anything, I don't even think that was really the main... like, focus of Arcane, at least originally. When it talked about breaking the cycle, it was talking about breaking the cycle of abuse, familial abuse. You know, obviously the violence and stuff, like, mattered, and that was also related to it too. But, like, it's this concept of wanting others to feel the same pain that you did, which is continuing this cycle of suffering and pain when, like, it doesn't have to happen. But the problem is that all this pain and suffering happens only for no notable change to really occur in the society. All the characters who did everything they could get nothing, and then the characters who should be actually facing the consequences of their enforcing of these abusive cycles they don't get any consequences, and it just feels weird. So earlier I mentioned, like, the writers said that there's cut content. Well, I learned during my recording, like, debacle that apparently the writer's room for Arcane got severely shrunk down during season 2.
And in the second season, we also did a writer's room that started off similarly. You know, COVID happened and sort of derailed all of that. And then we ended up working from home. The team kind of shrunk down to me, Alex, and Christian.
I'm assuming there was I'm assuming it wasn't just them. Like, they probably had editors and, like, other people pitching in, but, like, those three were the main writers. I could be wrong about that, like, completely, but I do know that, like, just on an objective level, there were less writers this time. And I'm not saying that less writers means it'll be bad, like, objectively. I do think, though, that could have affected the quality of the story, and I do kind of feel bad because it's like, I don't know if this was if this was a corporate decision to reduce the writer's room. I don't know if it was theirs. I don't know why it happened. It's just that that's something that they confirmed, and I'm going to assume it wasn't really their choice of it happening. And also just because of the fact that, like, this season is 9 episodes, but there was a point where I kind of felt like they could have had an extra episode, and people were talking about how, like, this sort of, like, format of, like, limited run shows is kind of bad for certain stories because it doesn't really allow a lot of breathing room for the narrative, you know. Like, people also complained about the pacing of this season. It didn't feel, like, as clean as the first one. Like, the pacing wasn't as good. Kind of agree. Just, you know, it was just a lot. I have 2 thoughts on this. One, I'm 100% certain that there definitely were outside sources that affect the production of this show. Maybe not animation-wise, because it still looks great, but, like, story and conceptualizing, I definitely think that something happened on a level that wasn't, like, they couldn't control, and it unfortunately affected the series in a way that like made it end up feeling not as conclusive. Maybe in other circumstances it would have been different. I just think that, like, you know, no creator sets out to make a bad show, and I don't think any of them wanted to here. And I do feel bad if their full vision wasn't able to be honored due to these constraints, like the episode constraints and the reduction of the staff and all this stuff. But I am also of the other belief that there are just a lot of narrative oversights here that I feel like don't really have an excuse, at least to me. That's just my opinion. And it makes you wonder, like, how did this even make it in the state that it did? Like, Jinx dying still feels doesn't feel right no matter what. It just feels cruel to her character. Even if she's not technically dead, I don't think that's actually like anything that's like progressing her character in a helpful way. It just feels weird. It feels very strange. Like I said, the whole conflict of Piltover and Zahn is not dealt with in a like productive way, and it almost makes you question, like, what were the writers trying to say with this? They build up all this stuff about Piltover and Zahn, Piltover and the Enforcers being terrible to Zahn, and like, even though Zahn is also like pretty shitty, but like they benefit from Zahn being shitty, you know, because it further legitimizes them like attacking Zahn and pinpointing Zahn and like punishing Zahnites. Like, it's just like that never gets nothing ever comes of that. And like I said earlier, it really makes you think, like, did the creators actually have something to say about this, or did they have nothing to say at all, you know? And like, it sucks that Caitlyn has the final monologue of the show. It just feels really hollow from her because, like I said, she doesn't go through any necessary development to really warrant it, and she just gets the girl at the end, and Vi gets hoed, and Echo gets nothing, and everything's terrible. Like, it's just I have to compare this to when I read the final chapter of Attack on Titan, and I did not like the ending at all. But I will give Attack on Titan this. At least they kind of did a bit more in terms of like really like dealing with the conflict of the story. It's like there's scenes like the one where all the characters are sitting around a campfire and like arguing and talking about the differences. It's like the scene where Gabby is confronted by that girl because Gabby is saying Eldians should be punished for their crimes, and then the girl's like, why should we be punished for something that happened like all these years ago? Like, do you think my mom, who had nothing to do with it, deserved to die? And then there's all the like, there's just so much stuff that like I will admit AOT did take advantage of that Arcane arguably did not do. So even though like AOT's ending is very divisive, I can at least give them that, like, they did they like Isayama tried. And that's not to say that the writers of Arcane didn't try, but listen, man, it's just stuff like Jinx leaving and locking Vi in the jail cell, and Vi is basically like, yeah, she's gonna do something terrible to herself, she's gonna do something dangerous, but then Caitlyn comes to unlock her, and then they just have sex right after. Like, Jinx is gonna kill herself. What are we doing? It just doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying that they can't have that scene. You know, I'm not above that at all. It's just that, like, it felt so tonally weird after a scene that was basically like, yeah, Jinx is gonna go kill herself. And Vi just didn't, like, ooh, this season is so weird. It's so fucking weird, and it's so bad because I actually enjoyed a lot of what the season did. I liked the conflict between Vi and Kate at the start. I liked the stuff with Jinx and Savika and Isha. I liked that a lot. You know, like, that was great. I liked Jason Victor. That's not perfect, but like, I like that. I don't know, I just liked how they ended their thing, and that's fine and cool. Mel, Jason, Victor kind of come out the narrative safe to me. The only real problem is that Mel gets left by herself. So, you know, listen, all I'm saying is, like, your boyfriend leaves you to die with his best friend. I know it was for the greater good of mankind, but also like yeah, I just don't know. Even with the time constraints, I just don't know why they thought that ending the show this way would be a good idea. Like, some people are saying they should have had a season 3, some people are saying this and that. And, like, I think there are ways you could have made the ending as is better just by tweaking it. But even then, I just think that, like, season 2 still being good, but, like, kind of, like, compared to season 1 failing in so many ways, at least like not or just not doing stuff as well, it's just a disappointment in itself. And then the ending is just really bad, so like it just kind of soils everything. That's all I really have to say on it. I'm kind of tired because I've talked about this topics 3 separate times in different versions of the video, and I just want to get it over. I just want to get it out. I just want to get this video out. I don't care. I want to make other things. I want to make a video on TF1, even though everyone has made a video about it, but like I still want to talk about it. I might go back to playing P3 and editing those videos. I kind of gave up on doing that, but I'll do it when I feel like it. That's just kind of how I treat this stuff. This video stuff is I just do it when I feel like doing it. So
I forgot to do like a outro for this. I think I was just done talking about it and I wanted to get the fucking just cut the video there and just be done. But after I did it, I realized how abrupt that ending was. If you've made it this far, thanks. I'm like recording this after I like did like the basic editing, like cut out the dead air and like cut out all the stuff. So I'm probably gonna try and like get this done in a couple of days. I don't want to set a strict deadline for myself because I'm gonna stress myself out because I have other stuff to do and I have a job, which that's been getting in the way of making this video. So yeah, I hope I explain my points in a way that sounds like I have media literacy. Um, there might be some stuff I forgot or missed. There's probably stuff I forgot about season 1 because I haven't seen it in like 3 years. So maybe there's some context that I might be missing here. Um if I'm wrong about something, please correct me and be nice. Don't be mean. But yeah, I really wish this season hit the mark, at least with its ending. If the ending was good, I feel like I could forgive a lot of the stuff it did, but it did not even do that. Yeah. I'm writing a script for a TF1 video about Transformers 1. I have no clue when that will be done though, because I'm actually gonna try and make it like nice and really, like really try to edit it. Like not just do what I do here. I'm gonna like really put effort into it, so it's gonna take a while. Aside from that, I'm on Blue Sky now. I still use Twitter, obviously, but like I'm trying to post on there as well. That's it. Bye.